NLL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. A good one, we hope. But besides, if you don't leave a good one, Gary will come after you. Both apps are absolutely free. That was a joke. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Lacrosse NLL Talk, our co-host Gary Groob. Gary, well, unfortunately, we had a guest cancel, but we won't embarrass the guest by saying who it is. We'll just say the guest canceled. So now you and I are going to do a song and dance.
I had promoted him. So he ran into a couple of emergencies to deal with, and he actually had to fly out. So he had sent me a message that he couldn't make it. He will be joining us at the beginning of next month, I hope. So
okay,
working on the date
because I really combed my hair today for a good look with him. You know,
I saw that. You know, it was just the craziest thing. You know, like you look stunning.
Did you say I look stunned?
Stunning.
Oh, stunning. Oh, okay. I thought stunned. I was thinking stunned.
No. No, no one at all.
It's all good. You know, we don't have the guests, so now we can talk about stuff, how the world and the changes that are happening on a daily basis will affect lacrosse, which is coming very soon. You know, there's only 1 month between now and lacrosse time, right? The only month is November between it. We're in October. We're at the end of October, in fact. All that's left is November in between. Because when December comes, that's the magic month.
Remember, we have training camps. So, in fact, Panther City gotten, well, one of our soon-to-be guests, Dan Teat, has been holding training for newbies in Memorial Arena in Brampton. So, had their initial newbie training camp over there. So things are starting to roll. About what's happening with people and all the things that are going on. Well, with the government lifting the restrictions, and next month with the U.S. lifting restrictions, I can go catch my
travel restrictions.
Yes, travel restrictions. I can go over and catch games over in Buffalo, Rochester, and all the things that I had planned on doing anyway. So now I can do it legally.
Well, okay. I don't know what to say to that. Be very careful. You never know who's listening. We do have a viewer, so be careful what you say.
Very true. Very true.
The commissioner of the National Lacrosse League. Don't be giving him ideas that we're doing things that are not legal.
Oh, no.
Just kidding. It really doesn't matter. The point is we're here to have fun and talk about lacrosse. So let's talk about those 2 points. First of all, you said it very quickly, and it's very important for people to realize that with lacrosse, a full complement of attendees at the games, the opportunity is there to fill the stadium. Now, it'll be the first year that the team not has been in Hamilton, but has been in Hamilton in this generation, if I can use that term.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Because remember, the Toronto Rock came from its lineage of the Ontario Raiders, which was in the same arena that they're going to. Only back then it was named Copps Coliseum, and now it's First Ontario Center, First Ontario Arena, or whatever. But it's going to be a change. It's going to be a change probably for the better for the team in itself, because now the money that was all stringed up on rent for the evening, Jamie can now put it towards other things on your game day presentation. And I know that the Rock have just finished with their getting their cheerleaders and all the other things together. They had their auditions and they have their new team. They also were looking for their promo team, so people to do community stuff as well as game day presentation stuff, as well as be there for people in seats, things like that. So things are falling in place over there. The team itself is strong. It has a really nice mix of veteran leadership and youth. They lost a couple of players due to these expansion drafts and a couple of other things here and there. But the nucleus is very, very strong. And in fact, they made news yesterday. They have a little bit of a different coaching staff.
Yeah, they posted it too.
Yep, it was posted. And, out is Blaine Manning because he has family commitments and work commitments. And in is a conglomerate, actually. Rusty Kruger, a former guest of ours, who has been the last number of years, also a former Toronto Rock player, is taking over the offense with Captain Colin Doyle. And that's going to be huge because Colin's going to do an awful lot of in practice showing of things and doing of things. So, I think that having his input is going to be a fresh look for the offense that at times could get stale. And I know I've gone hoarse telling him to get inside. And Doyle was notorious for being inside, shooting inside, getting inside. And
You want to get that?
no. They can wait. I was actually looking to see if it was, but
yeah, I know. His plane landed.
If you're getting me from the air, that's a pretty good cell system you got. I need to get onto that wireless program. But that's the main thing. And Bruce Codd is rolling up, as well as being the defensive coach. He's going to be the assistant GM, working with Jamie. So I like Bruce Codd's mind. I love the way he sets up the defense. I love the way he coaches in Orangeville. And I think having him in the front office is going to be huge. And I hope it keeps him here. Because there's rumblings, every now and again something comes across that maybe Vegas will want some. Never mind. I hope not. But yeah. So that's the new coaching staff for the Toronto Rock.
History has been very kind to the National Lacrosse League recently. A lot of course, we give Sakavitz, and we've done it on the show, we gave him credit, and not because we wanted him on the show.
Yes, we did.
Because we really believed it. And we wanted to have him on the show to get some answers to some of the presumptions that we made. This is going to be an interesting start for them, because a lot of the sports, have now gotten to the point where they've had their opportunity. Hockey just yesterday, in fact, and the day before that, well, in Canada yesterday, in Edmonton and in Toronto, they were given the first opportunity to have a full house if they could get one. Mm-hmm. The Leaf one was pretty full. So when we talk about capacity, it's going to be awesome, because with lacrosse, it's like they're going to step off the floor with audiences, and now they're going to step onto the floor with audiences. So it's a little bit of a different experience for lacrosse players, because the last time they were out, they knew what it was like to have fans in there. They didn't have the opportunity, unless we're talking about all these other events and tournaments and stuff like that. But the NLL is going from participation by fans to no league, no game, to participation in games with fans. So it's going to be the players and the fans at the same time who have been waiting the same amount of time to get in, hip deep in the excitement.
Yes. Now remember, not long ago, teams were marketing just to get their season ticket holders that hopefully that were the people that could get in, because we really didn't know if there would be anything lifted at all, if there would be anybody in the games, and then the U.S. would have their full games. But yeah. And then, like I say, the packages were coming out to the season ticket holders as guarantee your seats, because at least you will be in there, because we don't know what our restrictions will be. Now, with it being lifted, that eliminates that, and now the marketing programs are rolling out left, right, and center. Luckily for them, there is a couple of months before that first game, so they can really put it together, a good marketing program, get their places as full as they can. Places like Calgary, which generally get between 11 and 15,000, that's going to be huge for them, because putting 3,000 or 4,000 out would be crushing, especially after all the changes there with their deal with WestJet and all the rest of that. Such a big deal, so much so that they changed the colors of the uniforms, right? But it's going to be big. Vancouver is going to be big. Now they can market to all of their crowd, and it's looking up very much so. And Toronto, they've already started a marketing campaign to get regular, just casual people. So the idea of nobody knows when the games are, that's not going to happen anymore, I don't think. Not under this regime, not under Sakavitz and everything that he's been doing and trying to do. And I'm looking forward to the TSN deal and seeing how the first week rolls out, and then all the other games to be on the app, which is going to be fantastic.
I wonder, do you have any idea? Because this is something I wonder about, with the news today that Rod Black is leaving TSN. Not that he ever did lacrosse, but we have, a friend of the show who did the play-by-play for lacrosse TSN. He's now at Sportsnet, so I don't know if they're going to be able to get him to do it. Obviously, if he's at Sportsnet, no. I'm just wondering, is there anybody at TSN that you're aware of that you would be curious to see how good a job they could do play-by-play? Or will it be somebody that the National Lacrosse League will provide? I assume it'll be a TSN broadcaster.
I'm not sure it's going to be a TSN broadcaster because the last time around it never was. They wound up using their own people, the same people, they had used Andy McNamara.
Right. And he was with TSN, no?
Yeah. Well, no, not at that time. He was actually working with the Toronto Rock because most of the games were simulcast elsewhere. Him and Shanahan were the team. But I have a feeling, I'm hoping actually, is that Steven Stamp will step in and do the games because you're not going to find anybody more knowledgeable than Steven. And he does a real bang-up job. And he's worked with Shanny many, many, many times doing many tournaments all over the place. In fact, even the one in the summertime out in Calgary, the two of them worked together. So I would suspect, instead of trying to lure, that's what's going to happen, and each one is going to get their own broadcaster. It'll be easier for TSN because the only thing that TSN ever did was they had they had Claude Faig in between the benches.
Right.
They didn't have their own guys in the booth. And then the second time around, that was when the teams were paying for it. When they had the deal with TSN, they were actually using whatever broadcasters were the local ones doing it, and they would pick up the feed from the scoreboard. So I'm hoping we don't just go with that. I'm hoping we give full presentation with this.
And we assume that Shanahan will be the color guy, just by virtue of of the transition to people we know. And he's as much as you said, you're hoping for Stamp because he's a person who really understands the game, knows the game. I don't think there's any doubt that Shanny knows. The other Shanny knows the game.
Mm-hmm. They both do, but
or the Shanny. I don't know. I guess depends which one you want to call.
Brian is the one who's going to be doing the color.
Brian's the lacrosse Shanny.
He is the lacrosse guy. Yeah,
he's the lacrosse Shanny. So yeah, that pretty much that was a question I had. We've seen a season where there's been some strange. Let's talk about some of the stuff that happened last year that you recall. For example, Nick Rose scoring his second goal.
He got three. I was lucky enough. I've actually been at all three of them. I was in Rochester when he scored his second goal. I was in Toronto when he scored, I believe, on Vancouver, and one on Buffalo. The Buffalo one was sweet. Just I love watching that.
Describe it in your own words. We can't play it, but maybe we can. Maybe I can find it here on the internet.
Well, all of these were into empty nets, but these are all with leads. But the accuracy. Have you ever tried to shoot a lacrosse ball from 200 feet away and not have it bounce over the net? The care.
Yeah, because it's not like a hockey puck, right? No matter how high you shoot it, it doesn't bounce in the air.
Right. This one on the second bounce will bounce.
It'll hug the ice unless it bounces weird, which it can do, but not as weird as We've always talked about the difference between lacrosse and hockey, and a lot of other sports. Lacrosse is as three-dimensional as a sport can be. Because you can shoot the ball from down here, and you can shoot the ball from up here. And what happens because you do that is totally different than any other sport, because with a football, you can throw it this way, you can throw it this way. And a baseball, you can throw all you want, but you got to keep it within the box. So,
Mhm.
so as far as where the ball is going to go, where it'll end up, lacrosse, it's all guesswork.
Yes. Well, the real skilled players can hit anything. And
Absolutely.
if you've watched some of John Grant's YouTube videos of just challenges of anywhere in the arena scoring, you know that the skilled players can do just about anything with it. And different angles. Different angles just mean the shot's coming at a different rate, including a different spin. You're looking underhands to try and use the bounce of the turf. You're looking overhand to maybe high to low, underhand also low to high, and trying to pick corners as well. So you're looking at where you're shooting from is where you're going to be trying to deceive the goalie, as well as off-speed shooting. So there's all kinds of things that can be done with it. But to get back to the Nick Rose thing, it goes back to a long time ago when they first brought him in. I believe it was from the Boston Blazers at that time. But Terry Sanderson had talked to me. Of course, Terry being the Orangeville, king, he had Nick under his tutelage for a lot of the years in there, and he explained one things about Rose was that he had this ability to do pinpoint passing up the floor, and that would become a very handy thing. And lo and behold, here we are years later, a much more matured, much more savvy Nick Rose, who, in my opinion, is top 5 in the league. You can talk about this, that, and the other, and all the other things about his size, whatever. I put him top 5 in the league goaltending, but his passing ability is underrated. Nobody ever talks about it. You hear it about Mike Poulin because I don't know how many times he's set on long lead transition passes, but so is Rose. He doesn't have a guy like Dominique, he doesn't have a guy like Damon Edwards this year, but he does have a lot of youth in there, the Jubenvilles and guys like that, Jays in the mix. So, like I say, it may not be to the flash, but it will be to someone, and it will be accurate passing.
So a good goaltender who can also shoot the ball. Another thing that that happened, if I'm reviewing, I'm reviewing the news and the stuff that's happened in lacrosse in last year in the hopes that it'll give us an idea what to look forward to in the future.
Sure.
Now, last year they voted, media and various people voted on the top 30 lacrosse players ever, at least the National Lacrosse League. So I'm looking at the list here, and at the top of the list is John Tavares.
Well, how can you say anything other than that? You look at his point totals, you look at his leadership, even now as a head coach. The Bandits, when he got into coaching, and we had this talk a number of years ago, they were coming out of the Darius Kilgore years. They weren't that juggernaut that they had been earlier, and they weren't that juggernaut that they have become now under him. They were kind of trying to redefine their identity. And having him as the offensive coach, the first year, he had to take in what they had. But after that first year, they became a pretty honed device, and everybody was on the same page. Whether they were able to achieve everything every game, they were learning, but they were all on the same page. And coming from a guy like Tavares and the respect that he holds, he got the attention of the room. He's not the one that has to scream and shout. When he talks, everybody listens.
I'm gonna say this about John Tavares. What I will say about him is the era in which he grew to be such a great player, and the reputation that he created, is not the one where people were wondering about how to make the officiating better.
Mm-hmm.
Was not the one where they were figuring out let's figure out how to play this game so we can attract more people. In other words, downscale some of the rough stuff, that kind of stuff. This guy was a great player at a time when being great meant you had a greater target on you, Gary.
Well,
he had to overcome a lot.
He came in '92 when the Bandits came into the Middle League, to the Major Indoor Lacrosse League. And we've had many guests from that league, and everybody has discussed That was the Wild West, and it was. It was. There were some absolutely astounding games, and I still love watching it because they're still exciting to watch, in my opinion. But rough? Oh yeah, things that you would be sitting 10 minutes for, you'd be getting maybe a little, maybe next time you want it to be a little less rough, and then that's it. And Tavares. Just his style of play, soft hands, but tough. Don't solve it. And if you're looking for that one player that's going to
Oh, there we go. Saw that coming. We were starting to lose Gary, and then we lost him completely. Well, when we talk about John Tavares, he was he was a great player in a time when it was tough to be great. And like many lacrosse players, they do two jobs. He was a teacher in Mississauga, and he also spent time in Buffalo. And this thing in Mississauga, lacrosse was very popular. Brampton, same thing, and he went to school also in Buffalo, and we all know how important lacrosse is in Buffalo, especially in the National Lacrosse League, and so he's always been around lacrosse and been part of what makes lacrosse great, but also he's almost like a history lesson when it comes to lacrosse. He wasn't always playing for Buffalo. He was traded from Detroit. The Turbos to be exact. And it's one of those situations where, if you're the Detroit Turbos, who don't exist anymore, and you traded, I'm not going to compare it to Babe Ruth because that, might be going a little far. But in the context of the National Lacrosse League, in the context of lacrosse, you could almost say that. And I think the Detroit Turbos, like the Boston Red Sox, were cursed, which is probably why they're not in the National Lacrosse League anymore. That was a trade they should not have made. I was just saying, Gary, while you were gone, you were starting to disappear. Your voice was starting to break up, and then eventually you disappeared. So welcome back, Gary.
Well, thank you. My internet played a little bit of a trick. It looks like I have all green bars, so hopefully it's smooth sailing from here on out. But
I think it will be. So all I was talking about was the fact that, John Tavares is, and we're talking about the uncle, not the hockey player, the lacrosse player, just to remind folks, we're not talking about the same guy that plays for the Leafs. This is his uncle. And so, John Tavares, to me, was like, if you look at his career and look at where he's played, when he's played, how he's played, and even till today, he is a history lesson on lacrosse.
Most certainly. But like I was trying to say, I don't know if it came through.
Repeat yourself because you weren't coming through very well. So we'll assume that nobody could make out what you were saying. So give yourself another shot at it.
Okay. Well, the soft hands were one thing because you take a look at the amount of points he had, but don't sell him short. He was a tough guy. He was able to stand up to each and every one of these guys who were trying to knock him off his perch. Because remember, there wasn't anybody to be enforcers in that league. Everybody did anything and everything. Now, of course, you had the Kilgore brothers in case things went crazy out there, and you had a number of other players. But he would stand up for himself, and he would do whatever it took to win. But as he went, he transcends both leagues. So if you're looking for one guy that goes from one place to the NLL now, that's the guy. That's your poster child for this thing. Works in all levels, at all aspects, and it doesn't matter how rough or how we are now at the squeaky clean idea.
What they're trying to do, let's not ruin it for the people who really love lacrosse and love the tough part. They're not taking it out. They're just sort of putting a little bit of a rein on it, a couple of reins on it.
Curtailing it is what they're doing.
Just making it so that it's a fun game for people to play as well. And that's the key. We talk about his ability, his stardom. John Tavares was a star in the game. his name is synonymous with lacrosse, and you talked a little bit earlier about him being a coach and how he's respected as a coach. He also was involved in the Players Association as a representative for the Players Association on the Buffalo Bandits. So he also understands salary and how the game repays I guess the sacrifice of players, if I can put it that way, and the effort that they make. And I was saying while you were gone, how he had a job as well as a teacher at Philip Pocock in Mississauga, which is really his main way of making, a living, and lacrosse sort of kind of paid for itself and was a little bonus in life. I won't be as insulting as to suggest it was just beer money, but something to that effect. He had a lot to do with a lot of different things. Yeah, like I said, he's a walking history book.
He certainly is. And one of the things that him being part of the Players Association back then, and now being management, is the league has done that with a number of places now, that you have liaisons that are able to see both sides, which is why they've never gotten along better with the Players Association and management than right now. In Toronto, we have Reid Reinhold that's doing it as well. And Reid has become, I believe, the president of the Players Association, and they have an exceptional relationship with Sakavitz in the office. So for the first time in history, there isn't any outside stuff with the league. When it comes to the summer and the field game and the MSL, everybody's working in concert with the NLL. In fact, most of them are changing their rules towards the NLL in box. The PLL and the NLL have the same investors, so they're working in concert with each other. The Players Association and the front office of the National Lacrosse League are working in concert, so there's harmony everywhere. So now is when you're seeing all these things that they couldn't do before because they were so busy fighting each other or doing different things or trying to get the most for one side, not the other. And everybody's working together. And that idea of team together each achieves more. Well, it's true. We're watching it. And the benefactors are going to be the fans because, yes, the players are going to make more money. Yes, the league is going to be able to have more revenue. They win that way, yes. But the fans are going to be able to not worry about, will there be a strike? Will this happen? Will that happen? Everything is working, and all the different social platforms that are happening now, that you're able to watch it anywhere, that the game isn't going to be the secret. All the stuff that, you've been listening to me as I go blue, talking about how we have to market, how we have to let people in on the secret. Well, the secret's out finally. Finally, we're actually in that right direction, that I'm comfortable in saying, we'll just sit back and let them do their thing. And I don't think I've ever said that before.
Well, it does have, the leadership, and as far as helping the game grow, has, I think they've mastered something that a lot of sports have and some haven't. And that is to understand that it's vertical. In other words, right down to your youngest player, you have to make the game interesting enough and have players play the game at the youngest age to not only fill the rosters of the professional league, but also to maintain the interest. Because that's the most important seed that a league, an organization, a sport can plant, and that is its young players being brought to the game by their parents, who in turn have members of the family who get interested in the game. And those are the NLL's customers. And that's the important reason why the game it's been decided, again, the mastery of lacrosse is that they've understood now, they've grown to understand they have to make the game attractive, because they've come to realize that, the competing interests in different sports, and I blame it mostly, today anyway, I blame it mostly on soccer, because the popularity of soccer is eating away into a lot of sports. Because the toughest part, and we talked about this last week, if you remember, about bringing in ethnic folks new Canadians, to get them to understand the game of lacrosse. The important thing is that to note, and this is something people I really believe this is very important, is that it's harder to bring people into a game who know nothing about it. And when it comes to soccer, most people from everywhere know where soccer is. So in a way, it's easier to say to new Canadians, why don't you watch our soccer here, than it is to say to the new Canadians, hey, there's this great game called lacrosse.
Right. Yeah. That's again, it's about getting it out to the masses, and the more venues and the more things. Having Mark Grimes, and like I said, having him last week as our guest, having Mark Grimes at the helm, and having a lot of his, say, Rolodex friends is going to help out the juniors a lot. And it's, we're talking about TV deals with them. We're talking about other things. All these things are going to get it out there that people can actually see it. To have it strictly on pay is great for guys like you and me, because I'm going to watch it regardless. You're preaching to the choir, but you know how difficult it is to get someone who doesn't know what the game is to go pay, without going to the game. It's a task, shall we say. So now if we have a game of the week, because now Mark's talking about that as well, of having a game of the week or 2 games of the week, as a showcase, I think it's fantastic, because if you took a look at that 2-week tournament that he put on for the junior season, that was fantastic. You would see some of the best lacrosse. You would figure you're watching NLL stuff, because a lot of these guys are headed there now anyways.
Yeah, he proves the Cal principle. He's a mover and shaker, a mover and shaker.
Correct.
You have to have movers and shakers, right? People who can actually pick up the phone and make things happen. And if you have any doubt on him being able to make things happen, if you think about that tournament, it came out of nowhere. This isn't something they started planning a year ago or 2 years ago, or they do every year. This was basically something, hey, what do you think of this idea? And we heard him talk about how it was put together. I mean, it seems he was being a little, I appreciate the fact that he's not a guy who's shy about doing stuff, but he doesn't seem to throw much credit to himself. But we can throw credit at him now and say that without that Rolodex that he has, which you're referring to, which basically is the mover and shaker and his contacts, and those contacts being real contacts, people who believe in him everywhere in sport. It's not just about lacrosse. He has connections in every sport, which means he has contacts with a lot of different people who have, let's say, things to offer, not just that sport, but even lacrosse as well. So he was able to bridge the gap, bring people in, do some stuff, like even just the internet stuff that they did, Gary. That's just crazy to be able to put together something like that and put together, it's everything that they did. It's like everything they did touched gold, right? It was everything that they did was a success. And most of that is basically being able to use the faith that people have in you, the faith and belief in you, and also have people who well enough that you have faith in them to be able to deliver what you're asking them to do, as opposed to a lot of the failures in sport where we've seen people get together who don't even know each other. They have no clue if the other even knows what they're doing, and you end up with a house of cards and it just stumbles away. The foundation for what they do and what he did was strong. It was built on firm ground.
And you think about the moving pieces you're talking about. There were 11 teams that he had to get into this tournament, and he got all 11, and they were full teams. And yeah, everybody was chomping at the bit to play, but he had to get these in almost no time and have this thing that it worked. Boom. And if you're looking at 2 solid games a day times 2 for a couple of weeks, that's a credit to the kids and him being able to stay in shape through the pandemic. Because the first couple of games maybe a little bit rusty. Even that I didn't see that much rust. But by the second weekend, and you're looking at the Sunday thing, every game meant something, because nothing until the afternoon of Sunday of the second week, the playoff picture wasn't straightforward. We still didn't know who was going against who. We still didn't know from East and West who was getting in. So you want to talk about parity. Every game you're at the edge of your seat. And, we talked about the video, and it was exceptional. It was exceptional. Matt Carrick and Pat Gregoire did a fantastic job, almost losing their voice to it in 44 games in 2 weeks. That's insane.
That's that to me is, it's, again, we can talk about how it was organized. We can talk how well it worked. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it'll work. And the fact that it was put together and those teams were put together, and one of the advantages, and we talk about this all the time, for those of you just watching the program for the first time, you'll hear it for the first time. For those of you that watch the program a lot, know that we say this all the time. I like to say this. In fact, the neat thing about lacrosse is there's not an unknown quality between players. They all know each other. They all know each other in different positions. In other words, they know each other as teammates. They know each other as opponents. They know each other as other players in another league. So when you put this event together, it was easy for them to play with each other. That, as much as you talked about a little bit of rustiness, you're also talking about the fact that they just seamlessly started to play with each other. And the only negative that you could come up with is basically rust. And the important thing was that these players know each other, and it's like old home week. And the games, the teams are, and the games are so exciting because there's no getting to know each other. They know each other already. That's another advantage that lacrosse has in sports that we talk about. So I'm sorry if I keep repeating that, but I admire that about lacrosse more than anything, is that it's a 12-month a year adventure for players. If they want to play 12 months a year, there's 12 months a year to play. And not only that, there's 12 months a year, and then you can play 3 different leagues in that 12 months.
That's right. That's right. And you're looking at the summertime, that between the PLL and the MSL, that a lot of these guys are playing both box and field and traveling during the week, doing their major series lacrosse, and then going down the weekend to catch up with the Premier Lacrosse field. I don't know if you want to call it circus, going town to town to town, but all top stage stuff, and all mostly for the love of, because they're not getting rich off of it. Hopefully down the road, the money will be there. But now, for the first time, because of the Premier Lacrosse League, they have benefits. So it's worthwhile to be part of that organization.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of things that when you have organizations that understand, leagues understand that their asset is the players, and they must protect their asset. The long-term good of a player is good for the league for multiple reasons. The longer they play, the more they're willing to give, which is what creates the excitement at a game that attracts the fans, right? The intensity of at which the players play is advertising in itself. You've always talked about, and I've talked about it too, but many lacrosse fans say the same thing. If you just go to check it out, you'll love the game. And it doesn't matter what game you're going to see, you're going to see the same level of tenacity, hard work, and caring about playing the game wherever you go. It's like there is no, with lacrosse players, it's on or off. It's just an on or off switch. There is no in between.
Well, yeah, even if you get these guys to come up for a little pickup game on a Sunday afternoon, before long, this is going to be a competition. There is no just going to roll around a little bit here. No, these guys are, serious about the game, the creator's game, and they take it, to heart every time they take a shift.
Yeah, it's a great game. Well, oh, sorry, Gary. I thought you stopped, but you're breaking up. Oh, looks like we might lose Gary again. Or did we lose me? Or am I lost and Gary's there? Yeah, I think it's Gary. Speaking of Gary, number 2 in the top players in the National Lacrosse League ever, Gary Gate is one. And Gary also, are you there, Gary?
I want to.
Yeah, I'm starting to lose Gary, I think. Yes, that was definitely Gary that went. Gary Gate was the number 2 player. He played, he played everywhere, and one of the greatest players ever. And the biggest thing that I found to be important about him is, he ran women's lacrosse. He was commissioner of the Women's Lacrosse League. Now, we don't get a chance to talk about our ladies playing lacrosse. We've had a few conversations about it, and it's important that we remember that lacrosse is. I don't think it's that much tougher than hockey, and we know how women's hockey is in the U.S. and Canada, but we haven't had a chance yet to really, dive into the ability of women and how they can improve the game in lacrosse. So Gary Gate, as the second best player after, of course, John Tavares, he promoted women's lacrosse, which I think is fantastic. And the United States Women's Lacrosse League is something that allowed Canadian girls and U.S. girls to play a higher level of lacrosse. So, it's not just a guys game. It's not just a youth game. It's not just a senior game. It's all of the above. Hey, Gary, I was just talking about Gary Gate and just to get a chance to talk about women's lacrosse, which, he was the commissioner of. And, on the topic of the best NLL players of all time, he was number 2. So
Right.
again, another history lesson with why we both believe that lacrosse players are so great. They keep putting back. And so now we've only talked about the first 2. And the little definition that I told, Gary's done the coaching thing, all that kind of stuff. The one different thing he did than John was, be the commissioner of the Women's Lacrosse League of the U.S., the U.S. Women's Lacrosse.
Well, let's go one step further. He was also the coach for Syracuse women's team for many years, and now he's actually with the Syracuse Orange, the men's team.
Right.
So he developed that Syracuse women's team to be just a ferocious, phenomenal team. He's also he was the coach for the Canadian women's team.
Exactly.
Also a juggernaut. The field team. But him and Robert Hall were, when they were playing, were just sights to behold. They did things that nobody ever imagined could be done in lacrosse. And some of their highlight reel stuff from Syracuse when they played there is still all over the internet, let alone what they did in field and what they did in box. Their years through the National Lacrosse League, through the Major Indoor Lacrosse League as well. And other ones that transcended both leagues.
They put back. And that's, we've only talked about the top 2. Maybe some other time we get the opportunity to talk further. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I just wanted to point that out as another thing about lacrosse players and lacrosse, lacrosse leagues. They're interdependent. They're very interdependent. They rely on each other and they work together, and they're not really competing interests, even if some might think they are. What we've learned in all these conversations that we've had with all these lacrosse people is how they rely on each other, and how, especially now, especially with the officiating and the decisions on how to officiate and how to treat officials, there is a common thread there, and they all do agree that for the best of lacrosse, which lacrosse is doing, I think that's the one thing that will benefit the National Lacrosse League is that under it, there are a lot of people who want the same thing. They want lacrosse to be popular. We talk about money, but really, honestly, I don't think money's the motivator. I think that's everybody knows that's the elephant in the room, right? The better the leagues are, the better lacrosse players play. The more the media gets involved with lacrosse, the more television gets. We all know that does mean. But it isn't something that comes up first in the conversation. It's about making the game better. That's always the priority.
It is. But also, as officials start getting treated better, the NL needs more officials, right? As they're expanding, they need more officials. And getting them has been a difficult task because who wants to put themselves through that abuse as they make it up through the levels?
Burnout. That's what you got to worry about.
So, if things are getting easier on the officials because they're not taking so much flack. Then they can get to doing what they enjoy doing as well, as being the mediator on the floor, because there is no game without these officials.
They do want to make the game better. We've heard from that specifically from a couple of officials we've had on the show, and also the former National Lacrosse League supervisor of officials. We heard that clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like they're finally doing that. This idea of no guff, get lost, works out very, very well. To have a zero tolerance for all the extracurricular stuff, because the MSL proved it in the summer. Without all the chirping, without all the other nonsense that goes on, these games were under 2 hours. Very easy to sell it to somebody who isn't aware of the game itself and how fast a game it really is, because there is no loss of that momentum. All of these things become big selling points when you're trying to grab a whole new audience in there. And as the league expands, they have to do that on major cities and major events everywhere. The other thing I was going to try before I cut out for the fifth time.
Go ahead.
Is all these cities now are doing community programs to, number one, to introduce themselves to the city that they're in, or the community or the area, but also grassroots programs to get the kids involved. Because remember, that's the lifeblood, right? Absolutely. I've always said you need to market to the kids, not to the adults. Don't market the party. Market to the kids about the game, because if you market to an adult, you're going to sell one ticket. That's great. You got a ticket sold. If you sell it to the kid, you're going to get 5, 6, 7 tickets sold, because we're going to bring the brothers, the sisters, mom, dad, maybe aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, whatever. So that's the way you're going to market it. And what used to happen here in Toronto, and I hope it does again now with Mark in there, is we used to have OLA and the Toronto Rock together. They used to have an OLA. And that went way of the dodo. So I'm hoping that comes back now with the new venue, now with Mark in there as the commissioner of the OJLL, and that nothing but upside can happen there. It's to expose some of these kids to the field and to the players at halftime and have these games back again, and put the fire in their belly from the time they're young. And that's how you're going to grow this game. And then they told 2 friends, and so on and so forth. And then with games of the week and having it exposed, and then having it here, and have all the things are starting to line up correctly. It's just they can't miss a step. They have to have all these pieces going.
Absolutely. What we learned in our interview with Mark and of course the commissioner and some other people, Jamie Dowick has the 100% support of the movers and shakers in lacrosse.
Yes,
he has made a commitment, and he has done what he needs to do to make lacrosse better. And I sent a couple of flyers out there, just to, not only Philadelphia Flyers. I sent a couple of flyers out there, wondering, remember when Sakavitz was on? I said, "Well, what do you think of a team in Oshawa on the east end of Toronto?" He just flatly said, "No, Jamie's got all that." And the same thing was through last week when we had our conversation with who.
Yep.
And so it's not only that you have people like Jamie Dowick doing what he's doing. He has people have his back as well, because they understand the contribution that he makes, and that has to work out well for other people who are thinking of investing in the game the way Jamie does. Right? It makes it easier to know that your investment will be appreciated, and it'll be made easier for you to succeed, because nothing ruins a game more than failure. And that's the key here, Gary, that we've witnessed with the National Lacrosse League, with lacrosse leagues in particular. There have not been any failures to speak of. And we're talking, and I like when you said the fact that, is there another league that expanded during the pandemic? So, failure is something that that lacrosse hasn't really seen, and I knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but that's my view.
But you also take a look at the ownership groups that are coming in. Who's buying in now? The Joe Tsais, the Wayne Gretzkys, Dustin Diamonds. These are top-notch, wealthy people that want to get into the league. You have the Pagulas. You have, again, we talked about Jamie, but you have the hockey organizations. You have the Oklahoma basketball team owner as part of the Panther City group. The big chip, the blue chip ownership is coming here, which means stability. And stability means that all the other things can work because that's your foundation. If you have things, when the league was 13
And the
teams,
plan.
but we didn't know where they were going to be one year to the next. Yeah, there was a lot of juggling, and you kind of held your breath, because that's a house of cards. Here, there's a foundation set, and everything is being built floor by floor by floor by floor by floor. And the future is exciting because there's a lot more for them to do, and they're starting to achieve it. So, hold on. It's going to be a nice ride, not one of those rough rides. This one's going to be a really great ride where everybody benefits.
I spent a lot of time in building, so I have a little bit of an idea about building. And when you have a set of plans that you put together from beginning to end, in other words, where you're going to end up right from the start, the whole build works out better. And that's why it's important to have that kind of St. Havitz mentality and the lacrosse mentality, where you start from the ground up and where you want to be. You're not just moving around in a dark room with the lights turned off, right? That's not the way it looks with with lacrosse right now. It looks like everybody's got their eyes open. Their lights are real bright. Everybody can see where they want to be. They all agree where they want to be, and they're all headed in that direction. And they have a plan that they're all on the same page. They're all aware of what they need to do step by step. And Gary, everybody wins in that case.
Yes.
Right from the kids that play at a very youthful age to the people who buy tickets to go to see the games.
Absolutely. The thing that just to add on to your point there is you're talking about not walking around in the dark. Well, this is Sakavitz's own vision. He didn't have to walk into anybody else's vision and try and make it work and try and make sense of it. This was his vision. He took a step back. He actually took 2 steps back, saw what he had, saw where it had to go, tried to figure out where A to B and the best route to get to it and how to do it, and piece by piece by piece. And he's achieving it. And he's doing it his way. So he has total control of how he wants to do it, how the league runs, how the teams are brought in, what the MO has to be for them to come in. The ownership groups, now he has control over that too, because now it's a wanted entity. So, here is where the big build comes. And with TV and all the other things that are coming through, sky's the limit.
Absolutely. I'm mad at my computer. I said I wanted to. I hear you. I said I wanted the NLL schedule, and it gave me the NFL schedule. I don't care about the NFL schedule. So I just wanted, just to give a tease to folks, in week 1, Vancouver's in San Diego, Panther City's in Philadelphia, Colorado's in Georgia, and Calgary's in Buffalo. In week 2, I'll just do week 2. Toronto is in Halifax, Vancouver's in Panther City, Calgary's in Saskatchewan, Georgia's in New York. So for all those home cities, San Diego, Philadelphia, Georgia, Buffalo, Halifax, Panther City, Saskatchewan, and New York, look forward to the games. They're coming soon. And I want you to know that tickets are available. And all you have to do is go to NLL.com and you will find a place to call and to reserve some tickets. And take it from Gary and I, if you're watching this show because you happened onto it, you got to check out why we do this show, why we think it's so important to do this show. Mm-hmm. So, and why we've kept it alive during the pandemic, and, an hour a week talking about lacrosse with no games going on. I think that gives you an idea of the kind of enthusiasm the National Lacrosse League can develop.
Definitely. Once you go, you're hooked. And we'll give our kudos to Jared Harris again. We'll sell you the seat, but you're only going to need the edge. And no other sport is more true than lacrosse. We may not even need to sell you the seat because you'd be on your feet for 3/4 of the game.
Yeah, that's right. And I got to tell you, it's a game up close that's really interesting. The physicality and the speed of the sport is something that, if you've never been up close watching lacrosse, to understand the speed of that sport, you've gone to a hockey game, you've gone to a football game. The thing about lacrosse is they just got a pair of shorts on. They ain't dragging a lot of equipment around. So, it can be pretty quick. It is very quick, very, very quick. It's a fast sport. And if that's what you like, goals and speed, guess what? It's the right sport for you.
I agree. And if you like a little bit of hitting and maybe a dust up here and there, we still got that for you. So it's the Renaissance thing. It's for all season.
Well, it's true. It's all a really good, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we get to talk about it. Gary, as usual, a great show. Hopefully, our guest will show up next week. I have to say, if I have to dance, you're a good dance partner.
Well, thank you very much, Frank. Anytime to get a chance to talk about lacrosse is a good time to talk about lacrosse. I love talking lacrosse. So, yeah, I'm fairly sure that we will have our guest next week. And again, we will reschedule Tony. Tony sends his regrets, but he had to take care of a few things. So he will be here in a couple of weeks for us.
For Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Lacrosse NLL Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For lacrosse talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.